Moving to the Caribbean is something that, if you're watching this channel, is clearly something that's on your mind. And there is someone who I am so thrilled to introduce you to, who has made the decision to move to Jamaica. And I really want to talk you through their process, how moving to Jamaica has really helped them to level up. But I'm imagining it hasn't been completely easy either. So B, it's a real pleasure to meet you. I'm loving your backdrop. What prompted you to move? Let's get straight to it. What prompted you to move to Jamaica?
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I'm here on the countryside in Jamaica, and I have to say what first prompted me was spirit. So my father is from Jamaica. He passed away now 7 years ago, which is around the time that I started as a child of Ifa. So I began my spiritual path. And it has been the guiding force for a lot of the decisions in my life. And this was not shy of that one. It was it was definitely a guiding force to me being here. It was an interesting story of needing to leave New York by a certain time. I'd been there for now 15, 16 years, ready to go. Needing to leave New York by a certain time, and I had to spend time with my mother, and I had to go to Jamaica. And that was all I was told. And this was right before the pandemic. When I mean right before, it was February 20, I had to leave by February 24th.
Wow.
And they shut down New York February 27th.
Wow.
So I had no idea whatsoever. And so, I can say I'm probably one of those super obedient practitioners. So if my ancestors and Ifa say go, I'm like, where are we going to? And so this was the next stop for me after spending a really necessary and beautiful healing time with my mom in Atlanta. I then made my way here to Jamaica. And you're right, it has not been initially as easy, coming back home I call it a home because I also have spent time here as a child, but also as an adult. And I've had this beautiful mixed relationship to it,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm now feeling very home in a way that I didn't anticipate or know that I could.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so interesting. The number of people that I've interviewed who moved in February or March 2020 without,
Oh my God.
It's just.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The right people are where they're meant to be at the time they're meant to be there.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I feel it was very much a calling and a demand. So I'm glad I listened though.
And so talk me through that, because you're saying it hasn't been a picture postcard. Yay, this looks great on Instagram. And that's how it really is every single day of the week. So tell me about that process. And also, did you ever see yourself living in Jamaica as an adult? Because for me, the idea that I would live in Grenada, I would have prayed to God, like, do not send me there. There's nothing to do. Like, this is not who I am. So even now, there's times like, how did I get here? And it is literally listening, but I want to hear your story.
Yeah, as an adult, I did have moments, especially spending a lot of time in the Blue Mountains. I was like, yep, that's where I want to be. I want to go. I want to come home. I'm the youngest of 5, and I've probably spent the most time here out of all of them. I had my own relationship to this place outside of my family, in addition to my family. And I knew I wanted to be here, but I knew the complexities of being here. I knew the complexities of being here as someone who had multiple experiences, backgrounds, identities, that there would be some difficulty. I also knew what it means to be a single person that looks like me in a place like this, because Jamaica can have has a difficult relationship to bodies that look like mine. And I mean that as a woman, right? There has been a real, culture that we're working through and trying to heal when it talks about like the safety of women, the safety of children. And so there was a process for me of thinking about coming here later as time progressed. But then when I arrived, I can say that, I came in very bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I'm home. I got to Jamaica, my sister was like hipping me to what I needed to really pay attention to here. Um, and so slowly but surely, her concerns started to become my own. And her concerns also were based on realities.
Right.
And during the pandemic, outside of living on the mountain in the country area where I didn't have a vehicle, and I had to get my taxi man to bring me down to get food and back up and all of that. Yeah, became very isolating, super isolating here. And I still stuck it out. And I'd call home constantly. My work was virtual. I was totally burning out because I just really wanted to connect with people, and ended up getting sick because of that. But it was a rough start, and it was a rough start, I would say, because reality hit on the acknowledgement of where I was. Reality hit about the upbringing that I had as someone from the States, and how I needed to really the work I needed to do in order to be here. And yeah, I think the reality of making a choice like this hit in terms of being away from my family during the time of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that it started that way, and it wasn't until recent. There's a proverb, or we call them odu, or teaching in Ifa, that talks about when someone's feeling all over the place, send them back home, and or the state of their home, the country or the place of their home. And so I found myself doing this like 3-month journey, including making a heart and spirit, felt trip to Portugal, because I wanted to see something new and experience this new life and the potential of a higher quality of life with a lower cost of living. And, I spent time in all of these different places with my family at home, back in New York, in Portugal. And I had all of this what can I say? There was this experience of sensing into what wasn't right or didn't feel like home to me in a way that was very striking. I had been now 2 years in country on a mountain by myself, mostly, with some community, but in a very different Caribbean pace.
Yeah.
So all of these places, Atlanta, New York, Portugal, completely different, right? And so what I found myself doing is yearning for home, yearning for sun, yearning for ocean, yearning for Black space, yearning for nature, yearning for Jamaica. And it just threw me, And so as I was driving the other day, my family from here is Maroon. So I was going to visit some elders. And I was driving to go, and part of where I was going is rough, and it's Jamaica, right? It's not the modernity of North America. And I said, damn, I'm home. I recognized that internally something had clicked, and what had happened is that the work of decolonizing myself, changing and shifting my palette, right? I live in New York. I can eat whatever the hell I want all the time. Doesn't mean it's good for me. But there's a certain cost of life there that I became adapted to, and an experience of life. I wouldn't even say quality of life, an experience of life I became so accustomed to that A, I thought it was the norm, and B, I thought it was healthy. And so if I, what I learned on those 3 months of traveling and, finding myself be super curious in a place like Portugal, super curious in a place where, they've invented chattel slavery, super curious, wanting to know about the experiences of my Black and brown sisters and brothers that were there, like super curious. I recognized when I left there, the lesson was come back home to Jamaica and be curious. What is it teaching you? Not what did you know about it because you have time spent here, right? What is it offering, and you offering it now when you go home?
That exchange.
Yeah. So it became a very different, like, it just something happened, it just was like that feeling I was saying when I was riding in the car the other day. It was like, I found myself speaking in a certain type of patois and making up my face and skinning up my teeth. And, I was like, oh, shoot. God, I'm a Jamaican, And I found myself shortly after that, like in tears and just prayer of gratitude to my father, to my grandmother, to my great grandfather and grandmother, and just praying, to Nani, to thinking of all of the people that made this possible for me. I have a passport. I have citizenship. I can pass on to my babies of a place that looks this green and this Black. That is powerful to me. Absolutely. So yeah, it's a completely, I wake up to these mountains, wake up to this ocean. There's a shit if I have something to complain about,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to talk to you more about the work of decolonization that we do, because we might assume that, oh no, we don't need to, we're woke, but that's really another case. But also before, when we were talking, you used a really beautiful word, which was rematriation versus repatriation. What does that mean to you, and what is the connection, the responsibility, the awareness that you now have with those who came before you, being in the space that you are?
Oh my God, love that juicy question. Oof, it's so juicy. It's so juicy. In Western tradition, Western and spirituality, some of the few that I know, I'll say, because there's so many more to learn. But in traditions and cultures of our peoples, and also indigenous peoples in different parts of the world, this is a part of the work that I do. But it's oftentimes that you trace the child back. I will say, except for Ethiopia, but you trace the child back through the mother. And, it is incredible that the womb that I have holds the eggs of my mama, right? And grandmother. And like, this is not small stuff here to see this continuation of lineage that has come directly into my body. And there is something about that when I think about the power of our mothers, the power of life bringers in this particular way, life bearers in this particular way, and spaces that reflect that back.
Yes.
So I'll share that when the first day that I came to Jamaica in 2020, I remember just sensing and feeling my father's spirit. And as we were driving and we finally arrived at the place where I was, I said, my gosh, if this place doesn't just like ooze divine feminine energy, everything is pregnant. Everything I grow, every single thing. And it just was oozing it everywhere. And this was a place that was very present to me because I sensed into a need to heal that part of my relationship to myself. So it was very, very, very present to me. I couldn't stop seeing it, you know, and I couldn't stop seeing sensuality, and I couldn't stop seeing, like, I couldn't stop seeing how fertile this land was. And I oftentimes am mindful of attributing a gender to nature, and I can't help but honor that there is a motherness about this planet. So I oftentimes refer to it as a she.
Yeah.
And so there's this coming back home to my grandmother and great grandmother and great great grandmother's space that made my father's life possible, that planted this beautiful opportunity for me to be born in my mother, right? But it's also then coming back to a place that allows me to honor the rich relationship that I honor and adore to this beloved planet, to this beautiful mother that we all have, that I can't get if I'm in New York with a whole bunch of concrete.
Yeah.
I just can't get it. I can't get it. So the concept for me of rematriation is, yes, both coming back through that lineage and experiencing where my grandmother walked, experiencing the songs of my great grandmother when I can just listen in the wind, right? Like just being inside of that, going to river where I know that they used to wash clothes in St. Mary, having that experience. But then there is their relationship to this earth that is what is totally rematriation to me. You know, and I can even think about, you know, we're talking about my people being maroon. Our particular relationship to this earth is very significant. This particular land is very significant through, again, a matrilineal line, through Nani, through so many women who have completely continued to support the preservation of our practices as maroon people. So I again feel that rematriation over and over, you know, when I go see my elders, when I'm making offerings at river, when I'm doing this thing. So I hope that made sense, but there is a very specific way that I can sense into how my father does not feel in any way disrespected by that when I say it. You know, I feel like he's very clear. Yeah, you came back to your grandmother's land. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit more about the Maroon tradition, the relationship with the land, and if that segues into Song of the Spirit? If it doesn't, we'll save Song of the Spirit for later.
Yeah. Ooh, so one of the times before I came to Jamaica so before I moved here, I was at Bob Marley Beach, which is a mostly black sand beach. And part of my ancestral offerings that were given to me was to be able to walk with ancestor as a medium. So I have that experience sometimes. And I remember being at this beach and I had walked away from my friend and it was middle of the day. And it was almost like something had blacked out my sight because I looked around and it was completely night. And there were stars and there was a bright moon and it was completely night. And I looked down and I had very little clothing on. My skin was the same color, if not a little darker. And I had shackles. And what I feel and I understand that I experience, right? Because I also remember really concentrating on the mountains, is this awareness of what my lineage and our lineage, because it's more than just my own. Maroon people have made Maroon people as a people. There are Maroon Gullah people in the Carolinas. There are Maroon people all across the Caribbean, Suriname, like everywhere, right? That the folks who knew that they were meant to be free, that went to the mountains as a place to find refuge, Aitzi, that found their native kin, their indigenous kin, Taino, Arawakan family, that built a relationship to figure out how to make sure they can sustain themselves and create then what became free towns through their spiritual practice. That came through their Ashanti bloodlines, that came through their Benin, Cameroon bloodlines, that came through their Nigerian bloodlines, to really, really utilize their spiritual practices in order to help survive, protect, and sustain themselves, and make it so that they could have these free spaces or create their liberation. That is the lineage of Maroon people. That is who we are. It's not even a past tense, it's a present tense. And so this relationship to preserving that, and the reason why I made the distinction between that is our lineage, because sometimes when we speak that way, we think it's past tense, and the necessity of making sure, especially here in Jamaica, that we understand the Maroon culture, which if you real talk, it's probably everybody around here is probably Maroon. Connected to somebody. Because of the ways that we came and the ways that we arrived here. But this, the reason why I made it clear that this is still our culture, this is still our heritage, is the necessity of doing that so that our children know that this isn't dead. And to be able to honor that our relationship to the land, our relationship to healing the waters, our relationship to making offerings, our relationship to tracking the stars like Harriet did, our relationship to doing this work, this spiritual earth-based work that's just gratitude, that's just sustaining ourselves and our people, that there is nothing about that to fear. And so that, for me, as the director of Song of the Spirit Institute, which is an institute, a learning community that's based on really preserving Indigenous culture, traditions, our language, our dance, our food, across the Indigenous diaspora. So we're talking about as far as, our family in Peru, our Mestizos family, our family all the way over to the Aborigine. Like, we're talking about honoring that folks who are connected, again, to this planet, to this earth, who have a way of being in spirit, in relationship with this planet. But there's a culture and a tradition that has to be preserved. Because when the language dies, we die. So a big part of my coming back is to remember, is to connect, is to collect these parts and pieces for the 7 nieces and nephews that I have. Sorry, Spirit. And I have no doubt that is because that is a wish of my father and my grandmother. I have no doubt. No doubt. So Song of the Spirit is also in dedication fully to them, fully to all of my ancestors that are continuing to encourage my Choctaw ancestors on my mama's side. He's like, we need you to learn this language. That's Choctaw American, Native American. We don't call it that. But Choctaw Native folk who also are encouraging me to learn our languages, learn our culture, because it is our birthright. Somebody died for that to stay alive. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that work. It's been healing, daunting, life-giving. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where that institute goes and how that grows.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And I also think perhaps I've gotten to the point that I forget that people are scared of this sort of stuff. I've like blocked out that part. But to me, it's just so fundamental to our being. It's not a nice to have. It's not the icing on the cake. It is the cake. There is no cake without knowledge of self, without knowledge of everything that got us to be. I mean, given that everything that came our way, really, we shouldn't exist.
Exactly.
If you look at in Grenada, at least, the Arawaks, they're no longer here. We are. Why is that? By accident?
Exactly.
With the diet that we were fed, we still managed to survive and to turn it into beautiful dishes. Maybe not always the most nutritious, but I think what you say about the Maroons and their relationship with the land and the spirituality, like it's all key, it's central, it's cool. And I think what we're facing now, as a people, not just as Black people, as a people, as a
Yeah.
species, like
Yeah.
it's got to come from what has carried us all the way.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I strongly believe that. You know, it's been, you know, I kind of fell into a deep appreciation and gratitude for exactly what you're sharing when as I've developed my own relationship to land and to land stewards and earth stewards and folks who are making sure that this planet still spins, and having an awareness of how incredibly important it was that we as a people remember, because, you know, yeah, well, we need the doctors and, you know, the folks who are school teachers, we need everybody who's doing their path and their purpose, right? And there are folks' path and purpose that are to make sure that we eat.
Yeah.
There are some facts, you know, some folks' path and purpose that are to make sure that the fires are out, that are you know, that our forests are taken care of, to make sure that the species of all different kinds are there, that the bees still buzz, that there are people whose purpose is to literally make sure that we have a planet to wake up to every day. And so it's also, you know, we were talking about this a bit before, is that outside of Song of the Spirit, having this opportunity to, well, you know, that moment, I don't know if it was that moment that I talked about, that moment of arriving on that beach in that way, but I can say that it is in my own experience of continuing to do the decolonizing work that I was sharing earlier, but earlier work, that I can say this place, Jamaica, actually was probably the first place to teach me about, which was the power of my Blackness, my actual melanin. Because my father's the color of the night sky. You know, he's very beautifully dark. And he always used to remind me as a Garveyite what the power of my hair was, what the power of my skin was, you know. But it was being in nature in this place, surrounded by all of these different melanated earth tones, like deep, rich soil tones, that I was reminded how much this planet mirrors back who I am, how much it feeds me. I mean, you asked me, actually, one of the reasons why I really came is because I have lupus. I was diagnosed in the year 2000 with systemic lupus, and I've had a myriad of experiences with it, And a big part of the reason why I was told by Spirit or by Ifa to come here was because it would heal me. Hands down, I went home and I did some testing this last time I was in New York. It's now about a month ago. She looked for my lupus and she said, you have no markers. Wow. So, you know, we knock on wood. I keep doing the work. It's not like, you know, I've gone through various forms of different type of immunotherapy and treatment in order to make that happen, in addition to sustaining myself based on this land, but in relationship with this land. But I can very much say that a part of that experience of learning how much this planet reflects back who I am, it gave me the opportunity to honor the reciprocal relationship we have to one another, and how the care that the earth is taking from me, I have the opportunity to do that in reciprocity for it. And the necessity for us to be doing that, and what it means, especially for me to see my Black, brown brothers and sisters doing that as they're working fields, as they're tilling soil, as they're planting rice, and I'm thinking, well, damn, why is it that we are being hunted down in the street?
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for my Mexicana Chicana family, there are so many parts of that United States that would never eat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the interesting things that came up before we were talking, I was saying, you know, do you know Leah Penniman? Have you heard of this book, Farming While Black? Of course, she's like my bestie. And her next book, the title, I gave it to her, like true spirit. But anyone watching, I think that is a really interesting book to read, because I think, especially being here in the Caribbean and speaking to people of a certain generation, there's a real discomfort with the land. The land is not seen as the place to be. It's a site of a lot of oppression, pain, for good reason. But I think that book really talks you through who we are as a people and what our relationship has been with the land and the ways in which it has been distorted, but how we can actually regain relationship, not just to feed ourselves, but also to be in balance, which your story clearly shows. So I think,
and you're talking about Farming While Black.
Farming While Black. Farming While Black.
I didn't give her that title. We didn't give you, that's our whole title, but Farming While Black.
The next book you gave, which is
We Share. Yes.
It's all you. But read
Black Earth Wisdom.
Black Earth Wisdom. I would definitely recommend reading Farming While Black, because it's
absolutely.
It moves the dial in terms of just drawing everything together and giving you a really holistic understanding of the past and the future. I think.
I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. And what's happening current day to our planet and also to our people. You know, which is a part of, you know, you mentioned this work, this new book of Leah's is called Black Earth Wisdom. And the story goes that Leah and I are both Ifa practitioners and also organizers who have siblings who have worked together and love each other very deeply. And Leah knew she was writing a new book and got the name from Ifa, and then went online to go look for who else might have this title. And the only other person on this planet who had a business or anything associated with Black Earth Wisdom was me. And it was very similar work. The context of it is a bit different, but very connected. And so we have a shared love and support of each other's work. The book, and for me, Black Earth Wisdom is a social eco-justice brand that's really looking at what does it mean to honor, like our Mexicana Chicana family, our Aborigine family, our Nigerian family, our Jamaican family, our Grenadian family. What does it mean to honor melanated people across this globe that are doing the work to have that reciprocal reverence? So it's how do we honor that everybody loves nature? Many people, I can say many, even though we don't want to put our hand in the soil, you can't tell nobody sitting down, I want to go to water. They want to go to the ocean, want to go to river, I want to go to waterfall, right? Oh, I love to sit under the tree and rest my head on the tree. All of those things, that's all nature. Right? And to do that means that you have some connection to this earth and to this planet. But the taking of that just a step further is to acknowledge that the folks that make sure, like for example, on Turtle Island or in the United States, when they were having the raging fires in the West, the people who were called to do that work are the people who are often completely disenfranchised, who experienced ancestral genocide and are still trying to ensure that their children who were lost and the missing and murdered and or who were taken through the Catholic scoop, i.e. Native peoples, were called on to put out those fires. So we're still incredibly important as a people.
Yeah.
Black, brown, melanated people are invaluable to this planet. There's no reason, it's not missed on why our skin looks like the night sky or the soil or the wood on the bark that makes our homes. We're being reflected back. The importance of our life and our relationship to this planet is incredibly integral, I believe, to keeping it alive. And that's everybody got a little bit of melanin. But what we're seeing is the disparities and the rapid and rampant anti-Blackness and hatred, anti-melanin and hatred across this globe. And so I'm saying, through this offering, it's not a new offering, but through Black Earth Wisdom, which is the social eco-justice brand, it's really looking at how and in what way all of us who have some relationship to nature and love a good night sky and the dark, deep blue sea and the red soil and the red mountains can think about the folks who mimic those colors, that melanin, and think about their well-being, their health, their livelihood. Do they have food? Do they have water? Where are they living? How are they experiencing their freedom and their relationship to this planet? And we can do the work to ensure that not just for the sake of our own health and well-being, but for their relationship, our relationship to this planet, that we're protected and made safe through ending anti-Blackness. So I'm deeply honored to share this book with my beloved sister. I mean, I'm grateful to contribute to the book, and so grateful that that Ifa was speaking to us at the same time and was like, all right, go. Talk even further about melanated folks' relationship to this earth and why it's important that we listen to them and take care of them and protect them. Please go.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm grateful for this work. I'm grateful for this time, and I'm grateful for the message, for sure.
Absolutely. And I also think that there's I think you sharing your story and others sharing their journey just hopefully just highlights the importance and nudges people towards their own relationship and understanding how game-changing, fundamental it is. It's not a nice to have. It's not an extra. I think it's really, really key. And I think being in the Caribbean, or even just in other places, but here especially, like the blueness of the sky, the red of the flowers, it's just, you can't ignore it. It's in your face. It's like, ignore me if you dare. Dare to ignore me. And even for you, and even for me, when I feel like, I don't quite fit, this isn't that easy, we're still here. And those colors are still vibrating within you. The sound of the ocean is still constantly here. And it has an effect, whether you want to or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My favorite question to ask people to think about is, where do they see themselves reflected back in nature? So where in nature do you see or feel yourself like truly reflected back? Your own divinity is reflected back to you. Not through some image on an ad or television or Instagram or any dominant culture that has made one type of people the right type of people. But where in this diverse, multicolored, beautiful, like you're saying, vibrant planet, do you see and hear yourself reflected back, the truth of who you are? I think that right there is one of the many blessings and gifts and the medicine of this planet, of what it means to rematriate and come back to our ancestral homes and the places we've made home. And to really allow ourselves to be held fully in the truth of who we are for the first time, maybe. You know, it's a powerful gift. It's something nothing else can give you.
Absolutely, absolutely. B, it's such a pleasure to connect with you. I don't know if I said at the beginning, but we've never actually met. We've never actually spoken other than today. And I heard you on a podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts in the world, called The Herbal Highway, because you're also a herbalist. And I was saying to you before, like, to have a Black person on the show and a Black Caribbean person, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to talk to her. And look what's unfolded. It's beautiful. And I hope that it resonates with the people that it needs to resonate with, which I'm sure it will. And if folks want to connect with you, what is the best way? How can they support? How can they champion what you do?
Oh, thank you so much. Please visit songofthespiritinstitute.org. That's the name of the school that supports preserving language, tradition of Indigenous peoples around the globe. And you can also support Black Earth Wisdom, and that can be found on Instagram. And there's Black Earth Wisdom, the book, which is my beloved sister's book, Leah Penniman. And then there's Black Earth Wisdom, which is the social eco-justice brand. Say that 3 times twice. And we're really excited right now to be moving to the potential of a B Corp status. This is a huge deal. And we need more money. And we need folks to support us, really, just to subscribe or like or follow and acknowledge that their time, share your stories of you in nature as melanated people. It's not specific to Black or African people. It's folks with deep, rich melanin tones. Share your relationship to nature, being in nature with us, and then we'll hashtag it, and, put Black Earth Wisdom on it, and just be able to really amplify the ways in which this relationship to this earth and who we are as a people is incredibly important and must be protected. So yeah, those are the 2 ways you can find us.
Yeah, I will put all those links in the description, but it's just been such a pleasure. I needed this conversation, and I love the way in which slowly more and more folks are really beginning to shift the narrative on what this region is about. Like, yes, it's pretty. Yes, we have new music, but it's a powerful place.
Yes, it is.
Powerful place. It was powerful people. As you
Yes.
exemplified.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I feel really, really, really honored, very honored. And I'm glad. I feel it was right in alignment, because I feel like I had the chance to really honor my ancestors and my direct descendants too in this sharing. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.